Ele é considerado um dos maiores gurus de Hollywood. Está por trás de centenas de sucessos de bilheteria, mas raramente o nome dele aparece na lista de créditos. Robert Mckee ensina a contar histórias. De tanto ler roteiros e aconselhar escritores, acabou desenvolvendo o mais concorrido curso para quem quer se aventurar nesse universo. 50 mil pessoas já assistiram às palestras dele mundo afora.
Any idiot can write voice-over narration to explain the thoughts of a character. Okay, that's it. 1 hour for lunch.
Entre os alunos, 46 roteiristas, diretores e atores que ganharam o Oscar.
Natalie Portman, Black Swan.
E quase 200 foram indicados a levar a estatueta mais cobiçada de Hollywood. Talentos como Peter Jackson, Jeffrey Rush, Jane Campion, Kirk Douglas e David Bowie. Robert Mckee subiu num palco pela primeira vez aos 9 anos. Depois virou roteirista e chegou a dirigir 2 curta-metragens. Para os autores que pensam que liberdade para criar é a chave de um grande roteiro, ele avisa: a imaginação precisa de limites. Quanto menor o universo, mais chances o escritor tem de contar uma história convincente. You have more and more technology and 3D movies around, and a good story can be more important than any technology?
Well, that's of course always been the case, but every time at any period of history where there's been a technological advance, the storytelling always retreats. When we went from the silent film, by 1928, the silent film had really become a great art form, and then came sound, and the storytelling fell back into very cliched, static, and then it grew through the 1930s and became another great, brilliant form of expression, and then came Technicolor. Then came the widescreen, and we got some very bad movies. And so every time there's a technological advance, there's a rush, an impatience to exploit that technology. And whether the screenplays are ready or not, they will make these films. And so we see a lot of today, not just 3D, but computer-generated imagery. Huge spectacle. It's unfortunate, but it seems to be a stage we have to go through to get back to people coming to understand that the effect of this kind of spectacle is brief. Audiences get used to it rather rapidly, and then they are looking again for stories and characters, and story is the irreplaceable quality, a component of a film, but for that matter, on stage, on page, fiction or non-fiction. There's a great critic from years ago said, his name is Kenneth Burke. He said, stories are equipment for living. And the reason that people go to the movies, turn on their TV, watch plays, read books, read newspapers for that matter, is to get somehow models of experience, comic, tragic, and everything in between. But life does not inform people of how to live. If you only had life and nothing else to give you any guidance, in this veil of tears, we'd all be lost. And so the storytellers provide us with the insights and a sense of the shape of things, and very importantly, change, the consequences of change. I mean, more than anything else, what human beings fear is change.
Are there other screenplays that you like, that you think they're great and are good examples of good screenplays?
Oh, sure. There's I teach a variety of courses. The Casablanca I show at the end of the story seminar.
Yes, I'm ready. Fiery. God bless you.
Gotta hurry, you'll miss that plane.
But I also teach courses in, I teach a whole day lecture in comedy. And at the end of that day, we look at a fish called Wanda.
Hey, great fish.
Oh,
Little squeeze of lemon, some tartar sauce, perfect.
George back yet?
No, he had to go to the What?
That's quite a stutter you've got there, Ken. It's all right, it doesn't bother me.
I do a whole day's lecture on crime stories and thrillers, and that at the end of that day, we watch a great film by David Fincher called Seven.
You have to wear blinders sometimes. Most times.
We do a whole day on the love story, and to climax that day, we watch The Bridges of Madison County.
Men still do that, don't they? I'm not out of date, am I? I'm picking flowers for a woman, a sign of appreciation.
No, not at all. Except those are poisonous. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry.
I also do a day occasionally on film as an art form, just examining how films really become great works of art. And in that day, we look at Ingmar Bergman's brilliant Through a Glass Darkly. We look at Roman Polanski, Robert Towne's Chinatown.
Anyway, the point is I'm not in business to be loved, but I am in business. And believe me, Mrs. Mulray, whoever set your husband up set me up.
And so I teach a variety of films, and those are just again good examples for me to use, depending on the subject matter of the lecture. But of course, the history of film is full of thousands, really, of great film.
What are the big mistakes that a writer can do in a screenplay?
The most fatal error is that it's very simple, really. They lie. They just don't tell the truth, they either pretend that life is all about fine tuning, and independent filmmakers often try to be subtle and sort of anti-Hollywood and create these very minimalist works of people just struggling to learn to communicate a little better or whatever, and pretend, it's false, that these kind of minor adjustments in relationships are really what life is about. Or they'll lie in another way. They will overstate it, and it'll be full of false conflict. It'll be a story of some maniac with a nuclear device holding a city to ransom. And so it's either they're trying to be very subtle and they think artistic, and they will create stories that sort of understate the truth of the life, or they will overstate it, and it'll be full of false conflict. But one of the things that strikes me when I look at bad films or bad writing, when people submit scripts to me for consultation, is I read it and I'll say, the writer may not realize it, of course, but this is simply not the truth. I'm not some absolute truth. I've just been given their characters, given their settings, within the limits that they create. They're not telling the truth.
What about Cliche?
Well, that is an endless war, and the problem with cliches are twofold. One, they work, and that's how they became a cliche in the first place. Somebody, who knows when, found this moment, and it was brilliant when they used it. or this kind of character, whatever. They found a cliche, and the first time it was used was excellent. And so it's been copied again and again and again and again ever since, and because it works. And so there's a natural temptation for people to recycle these things. The second problem is the amount of storytelling in the world today is so enormous. Television stations run 24 hours a day. There are literally hundreds of channels. Films come out by thousands of films a year. Books the same, theater, etc. And the quantity of storytelling is so enormous in the 21st century compared to what it was, say, in the 19th century, that stories get worn out fast. Cliches proliferate, and so it's harder today to be a writer than it's ever been, because you really have to have an insight into life and a sense of what it is to be a human being, a very keen observer, in ways that writers may not have had to in the past.
What do you mean about story design?
A story is like a piece of music. I mean, to have a clear analogy of between the arts, to realize that the writer's cousins in the world of art are not painters, photographers, sculptors, architects. Those are the plastic arts. Your cousins are music and dance. And the primary dimension of a story, like music and dance, is it operates through time. And one of the great problems of being a temporal artist is you've got to take the audience or the reader through time, unaware of the passage of time. The great enemy in that case is repetitiousness. When notes become repetitious, dance movements become repetitious, beats and scenes become repetitious, the audience loses interest and becomes acutely aware of the passage of time. So you have to create, like a piece of music or dance, a design of events that is dynamic in moving the characters through their life in a way that holds interest, keeps that question alive in the reader, the audience's mind, how will this turn out, and involves them empathetically into the deep humanity of these characters, even when they're animated characters. And so there has to be a design.
You tell authors that freedom to create is suicidal. Why?
Well, because if you say to yourself anything and everything is possible, nothing will happen. Or what will happen will be so unimaginative that it will have no real spark, no creativity, because there's a natural laziness. And if you allow yourself anything, then you come up with easy solutions, and you certainly run the risk of cliche. When you say to yourself, I'm going to, for example, you say to yourself, I'm going to tell this entire story from the point of view of this character. This character will be in every scene, and everything will be written from this character's point of view. Well, that is an enormous discipline, because that means that the story can only happen in the presence of this character. The easy thing to do would be to jump around, go to this character, that character, back into the past, into whatever. But no, I'm going to limit this. I'm going to really discipline myself to present tense, no flashbacks, no flash forwards, no side trips, this character straight through. Right? That means you're going to have to solve, that creates such problems. How to organize the events in the story to flow toward and through this character and never otherwise. That forces you to solve creative problems that if you let yourself be free and jump around, you wouldn't have that problem. As a result, your imagination will be taxed to the maximum. You'll really have to be creative to figure out how the hell to tell this story through this one point of view. And so freedom is your enemy, because you make it easy for yourself. The whole idea of an art form is to make it as difficult for yourself as possible. And that then requires that you dig deep and be a genius.
Sir, what if a writer is attempting to create a story where nothing much happens, where people don't change, they don't have any epiphanies, they struggle and are frustrated and nothing is resolved? More a reflection of the real world.
The real world?
Yes, sir.
The real fucking world. First of all, you write a screenplay without conflict or crisis, you'll bore your audience to tears. Secondly, nothing happens in the world?
This course makes you
Mr. Mckee!
Yes? You gotta go back. Put in the drama.
I can't go back. I've got pages of false starts and wrong approaches. I'm way past my deadline.
Tell you a secret. The last act makes a film. Wow them in the end. You got a hit. You can have flaws, problems, but wow them in the end. And you've got a hit. Find an ending. But don't cheat. And don't you dare bring in a deus ex machina.
You were showed in the film adaptation. A character that played you.
Yes.
How did you feel to see yourself in the screen?
Well, it was great fun, of course. I've seen myself many times on the screen without.
But in a film.
But not, because we recorded it.
Your characters must change. And the change must come from them. Do that, and you'll be fine.
You promise?
What was really interesting for me was to watch my son watch me on screen. I mean, it's one thing for me to see myself portrayed on screen. It was great.
What did your son say?
Oh, I asked him if what he thought about Brian Cox's performance, and he said, "Dad, he nailed you." And I, that must be quite an experience for a son to see his father portrayed in a motion picture. So he handled it well. He was cool. He was cool.
One of your presentations is about the business world.
Yes.
How do you mix storytelling and business?
Well, I think it's it's recognized widely that great leaders are great storytellers, and often it's a natural thing for them, and they know how to take situations in life and in the business world and present them to people with clarity and inspiration and a sense of truth, because they don't just list statistics or appeals to authority or pie charts or graphs and whatnot. They don't. They take the facts that would be on a pie chart and they weave it into a story, which captures the interest emotionally as well as intellectually of the people that they're telling the story to, and strikes them as being very honest.
One of the interviews I read that you gave recently, you talked about a guy from Pixar to Peter Docter, which is animation and is still a great screenwriter. Yes,
well, the Pixar team, John Lasseter, Pete Docter, those guys are Andrew Stanton, brilliant storytellers. All the Toy Stories, 1, 2, and 3. Finding Nemo.
Duck! That's not a duck, it's a pelican! Everybody hold on!
Up. On and on. I mean, they are just great storytellers, and they are all my students. And they have there's a principle I teach in the lecture about taking stories to the limit of human experience.
All right.
Typically, if I understand correctly from what I've been told, it takes about 5 years to make a Pixar film. And they literally take 2-3 years to write a screenplay.
Reach for the sky.
You can't touch me, Sheriff. I brought my attack dog with a built-in force field.
Because they're constantly improvising, experimenting, trying this, trying that, and their standards are the highest. I mean, they will not settle for good enough. So yeah, those guys are, that's one of the reasons they are the most powerful people in Hollywood in terms of box office and influence. The world would be a much better place if everybody made film to the standards and the quality of Pixar.
But the thing that makes Woody special is he'll never give up on you. Ever. He'll be there for you, no matter what. You think you can take care of him for me? Okay then.